So this is what I want to spend a little bit more time what this means. So in the past, under the current law, school districts are entitled to can claim the ADA the greater of the current year or the prior year. So in for 22-23, if we will under current law, our ADA will be 1743. However, under the proposed law, we could claim the average of the or the last three. So the average. So that we will get in. Let me minimize this. I cannot see that. Okay. So in 2023, under the proposal, instead of getting the ADA 170.43, we will get 1,892. So it's a difference of 149. However, it's still lower than what it was in 2021, 1966. So it's a soft landing. It's an average of 3 years. That's the proposal. And as we get in closer, it seems like this is something that is going to pass. So that will help us. And so what this means, so for 2023, this is a preliminary. It was going to be very clear, and I'm sure it's going to change by the May revise. Our preliminary finding will be about $24.6 million based on the ADA 1892. So the COLA is 5.3%. However, there's costs, there are increases like inflation. We had to do bargaining. Costs continue to increase. So, for instance, CalSTRS will increase from 1692 to 1910 about 2.18%. CalPERS from 2291 to 2610%. So it's an increase of 319. So those are costs that the governor is not giving us any money for that. It's part of the COLA. As the superintendent discussed in detail, early education is we had to provide TK for those students whose birthday has the way to February 2nd. So this is a graph, exactly what the superintendent just discussed in his report. Every year we are increasing 2 months starting in for next fiscal year. Eventually, all the 40 years old will be in TK. We could enroll that. So the parents still have an option to enroll this, but the districts do not have. We had to provide the services. The Spender Learning Opportunity Grant. This is our district is entitled. We receive about $2 million a year. This is this data. We had to provide 9 hours where the students could be in school, and plus 30 days of non-schools. So it's during the regular school year, plus summer schools or during the breaks. If we don't do that, we will lose 100% of the funding. So we don't have this is this is not like we choose to. This is not a grant that we apply. That's just given to us based on the new rules. This is a good news. Special education is also getting the COLA. Last year they did not. Universal meals. So we are ahead already of this. Every school district has to provide breakfast, 2 meals, breakfast and lunch. So we are already doing that. So there's not additional funding for us. This is more applied for districts who are not could not have that service. For the first time in the longest time since I remember, as part of the general budget, there is funds, 2.2 billion allocated for construction for facilities. Just so that in the past, it has been part of the facilities bonds at the state level. Now they're doing one-time funds. They're funding with one-time funds from the general fund. Reserves. there's a law, there's a 10% cap on the reserves, but this only applies for districts that are greater than 2,500 students. So these are not, Robla School District is not affected. And thank you for your time. And I'm sure a lot of this will change by the May revise, but this is what I know as at this point in time. I'm available for any questions.
So that 9-hour day for the TK, how the students are in class for 4 or 5 hours of that day, and we would possibly be required to provide additional, almost double or more.
Yeah, so this is it's called for expenditure. So this is, it doesn't have to be necessarily classes. This is just opportunities like to do extracurricular activities, like opportunity more like for, it's like a daycare where they can do activities like art, sports, or kind of like the 4R is doing right now. So that's, or like the after school program. So it's like before and after school programs, doesn't have to be curriculum or classes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I realize, yeah, that's beyond the school, there's extracurricular activities, so forth, but it could be up to 4 or 5 hours additional for a student, the parent so chooses, right?
That's correct. And it is way it is that we had to offer it, and parents could choose a few hours in the morning, others in the afternoon, but we had to be available for them.
The concept is good. I just a little bit worried about funding it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, several. We are discussing that a lot in our circles. If this is enough to cover this, and what kind of programs, and also during this time, the staffing that is needed for this, is just going to be a challenge to implement it. We have been discussing. I want to share with the board. We have been discussing that with having a superintendent this for few months now. So we have done a lot of.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick question. Would the TK students be allowed to do the before and after school care with like the kindergartners and first graders like we had prior to the pandemic?
Yes.
The Head Start program, can they be in those programs, or are they required to be separate from that?
Oh, at the same time, so they're eligible for this. We had to see, like, they're the earlier one grade school. They will be with older kids, but they're eligible. They could be on these programs as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have a question as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bill right now before the legislature that would change school finance from ADA to enrollment. What difference would that do? Do you have at least a general idea of what difference that would make should that bill pass in terms of funding for Robla?
Yes, I mean that is actually great. So that means I haven't calculated numbers, but it just means that it's based on the students that enroll instead of the ones who attend. So if that passes, that's great news. But I have not calculated the numbers yet.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I heard that about this week. So. Yes, but it has been,
Senate Bill 830. It's actually already been referred to Senate Education.
Okay, that's great news. Yes. So that will be in place of this. That's even better than this. So just whatever numbers we have. So the enrollment.
Thank you, Ms. Castillo. Is there any other questions from the board?
Okay.
Reyes, is that the end of your report?
Yeah, that is the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. And board member reports, Ms. Devine.
Nothing at this time.
Ms. Cardona,
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Barnes.
Yeah, just one thing. Recently, or a couple weeks ago, the governor made an announcement of a new service called College Core, in which college students will if they qualify, be given a grant to do community service or internships within the state of California to help pay for college. Now, the reason why I mentioned that here is because there is a consortium in the area between UC Davis, CSU Sacramento, Woodland Community College, and Sac City, and that is called the Central Valley College Core Consortium. I know that's very long, but that's the name of it. And the nice thing about it is that it plans to put around 1,000 students into service in the area over 2 years. And what it will do is it will give students who complete 450 hours of service a $7,000 living stipend and a $3,000 educational stipend. And how that applies to us is that the 3 areas of service that they are focusing on are education, climate change, and nutrition, food insecurity. And within education, they are looking for where it will make the biggest difference. And so this is an area in which I think that once it gets going, because this was just announced, it will allow our local area schools to tap into that consortium and get students from those 4 different colleges and universities to do service within Robla, up to 450 hours of service, and they will get paid for it to assist them in cutting on their college education. So this is something that I think is really exciting for our area, because we'll get very committed students. And I look forward to it. And Superintendent Reyes has already submitted a letter of interest, so that when the system gets going and they are accepting applications, Robla will be included in all the communications. So very excited about that. Central Valley, California Core. And and the area, this particular consortium received from this grant $16.1 million. So it is a pretty hefty grant, and that is just for the local area consortium. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. That's very interesting. I look forward to that. Some good positive news to help out
Yes.
us and other students too. Mr. DeLuz.
Yes. So the legislature is back in session and introducing bills, and there's just been a couple of measures right so far that have been introduced that we might want to keep an eye on. One was the SB 830, which addresses or changes how schools are funded. So it takes it from ADA, which is basically a combination of both attendance and enrollment, and would shift it to just enrollment. So that's something that's big, as was just discussed. It'll make a difference in our budget. The other is a measure. Hold on, I had it here right in front of me. SB 906, which is a bill that would require school districts to collect data and information on gun ownership of students' parents. For me, it's a concern just because regardless of how you feel about firearms, I don't like the idea of the school district being put in charge of or having to collect that sort of information. Anyway, but so those are just 2 bills, but the deadline to introduce legislation is going to be coming up here pretty soon, and we'll have a better idea of all the education bills that'll be out there, and I'll just be bringing you guys some updates as we get those.
Trustee DeLuz, what was the number of the first one you mentioned? You said it, and
SB 830.
SB 830. Okay,
by Anthony Portantino.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuz. Much appreciated for the information. I don't have any report. I will say that I just finished about a 2.5 week bout with COVID. And I want to thank the school district for providing some testing kits for me, fully vaccinated, boosted and all, and I still happy to get it. So it really kept me out of contact with the normal time I like to spend in the schools. And I just received a note from Mr. Revin. He's here now. I'd like to share a little bit on the Robla Education Foundation. Mr. Revin.
Thank you, Dennis. And yes, I sent out an email a couple of weeks ago to the people that have been staffing the booth for the last couple of years. They get first choice on the shift schedule. And this coming week, I plan on using the district global list and sending it out so that our district members can get their opportunity to maybe earn some funds for different things. Because I'm looking forward to next fall. Hopefully things will start opening up where we'll be able to have kids go out on field trips to the different educational field trips that we've gone to on the past. And, you know, because if that does open up, I foresee the request for field trips increasing above and beyond what the district will be able to fund. So that's something to look forward to. So I have plenty of shifts that will be available for people to sign up for, and we'll still be at Bing's Market underneath the big sign like we were last year. So none of that will change, but hopefully I can get all my shifts scheduled prior to, say, June 15th, so I don't have to start sweating it and stressing out over how I'm going to open the booth and how I'm going to keep it staffed. So thank you all for allowing me this opportunity.
Thank you, John. And yeah, I think we owe it to give you a little more bang for the buck. Appreciate it. Thank you, John. That brings us next to presentations information. We'll start with the audit report.
Yeah, we have here Mr. Kevin Sproul. He is the partner of the audit firm who did the audit report. So this is an independent report that they completed that has been submitted to the county. Mr. Sproul, just take it from here.
Okay, sounds great. I'm going to share my screen really fast. Everyone see the giant audit report?
Yes.
Okay. So my name's Kevin. It's good to see all of you all. I am one of the partners here. Aubrey was the main partner over the report. She is at another district tonight, and one of our other partners is at another district tonight, and one of our managers is at another district. It was a hot night for board meetings tonight. So I will start with one of her favorite jokes this year. If you love numbers, or if you love words about numbers, this whole thing is gold. 113 pages of gold for you. So when I go through the audit reports, the way that I typically do it is I kind of hit each section and kind of go through the flow of the audit report, explain what the different sections are. And then when I'm all done, I open up for questions. And so we're going to start at the very beginning, at the first letter. So this is the independent auditor's report, which is the opinion letter over the financial statements. And you can see in the last paragraph, it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, each major fund. It means unmodified audit opinion. So that's what you want in an audit report. You want each of your opinions to be unmodified. So that's the first thumbs up of the report. After the letter is the management discussion and analysis. This is actually an unaudited portion because it's furnished by management. So if there are questions in this section, some of them I'll be able to help answer, but some of them will be management's questions. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that. But following that are the financial statements. Okay, so basic financial statements. And there are two sets of financial statements when you have a school district audit report. So this first set is the government-wide financial position and statement of activities. And I say government-wide because school districts inherently operate under a modified accrual accounting system. They do not show the debt, the fixed assets, anything like that on the actual books that they operate through. So the government-wide financial statements goes through what's called a series of conversion entries to put all of those things onto the school's books. So the net pension liability, OPEB, any bond debt, all those things get lumped onto it right into the government-wide financial statements. And I like to say that because typically the total net position is a big negative number and boards are like, what? How do we have such negative numbers? don't stress. This is the government wide that put all of that debt on, obviously if you see the long-term liabilities, the amount due within 1 year is much smaller than the amount due in more than 1 year. And I'll even show you the reconciliation page that goes from the governmental to the government-wide, so you can see that. So we have the statement of net position, which is your assets and your liabilities, followed by your statement of activities, your expenses, your revenue. And once again, this is the government-wide statement of activities. And those are then followed by the governmental financial statements. So, especially Gerardo, this is what he deals with every day. He's in the trenches in the governmental funds. So you can see the governmental financial statements are broken out by fund. The individual funds listed here meant that they qualified as a major fund this year in the audit, which means they pass certain thresholds of percentages based on their totals. And then you'll see a combining total here of non-major governmental funds. I'll show later in the audit where there are combining statements, so you can drill down into those numbers more. But you'll see the total fund balance on the governmental side is almost 50 million positive, whereas the government-wide, all of a sudden you're like, what? Negative 27 million. So that's why I like to differentiate between those two. And then here is that first reconciliation page that I wanted to show you, where you can see the governmental and all of the different things that went into those conversion entries to bring it to where that government-wide one, the government-wide fund balance was. If you need to, if you're wanting to really drill down and figure it out, that's where you want to go. Then there is a statement of activities for the governmental funds. Once again, you have your major funds presented in each column, and then your non-major funds is together. And after this statement is another reconciliation that takes the governmental funds amount into your government-wide amount. So, like I said, government-wide brings everything in. Governmental is the stuff that the school district deals with every day, and those reconciliations are what you can use as your roadmap to go between them. After those basic financial statements are the notes to the financial statements, and they serve two main purposes. The first is to give a summary of the significant accounting policies that the district follows and operates under. And then the second, which most people utilize more, is that they take some of those individual lines on the financial statements and they break them out in more detail. So for example, if you wanted to know what accounts receivable was made up of, you would go past the A note all the way to, almost there, accounts receivable. And once again, you can see that it's broken up by those same funds so that you can easily tie it back to those governmental financial statements. And so you can see, oh, we had a bunch of federal and we had a bunch of LCFF AR this year. And so it just kind of lets you dive down into those financial statements more. If you're crazy like me and love numbers. Some of the other important notes that are part of these notes to the financial statements, the long-term debt note lets you really dive more into the different pieces of long-term debt right here. And there's explanations on the different pieces within it, and a breakdown of just the general obligation bonds versus the other things. There's also the net pension liability, which is, if, like I said, my joke at the beginning, if you love numbers or words that talk about numbers, the net pension liability is 20 pages of solid gold, because it goes into way more detail than probably anybody ever wants about where the net pension liability kind of comes from and where those numbers are. So I'm going to go through the rest of these notes into the required supplementary information. Going through the net pension liability, now the OPEB. Like I said, there is a lot of pages through here that if you want to dig in, you can dig into each of those different lines. So the required supplementary information is gap schedules that have to be in governmental audit reports. There's a budget, that's the general fund, followed by a couple of the net pension liability and OPEB liability 10-year schedules. And once again, these are required by GAAP. The RSI schedules are then followed by the combining statements. And this is what I had mentioned earlier, where you took those total non-major governmental funds, and now it has broken them out into the categories that they fall under. So there are special revenue funds, and then there are the capital projects funds. Now, each one of these is also made up of funds, which, if you go into here, we are now in the combining balance sheet for the non-major special revenue funds. So we're really going down the rabbit hole now. And they'll have a balance sheet and a statement of activities for each one of those. So the non-major special revenue funds are made up of the Child Development Fund and the Cafeteria Fund. And so you'll see then the non-major capital project funds are made up of these three funds. And so you can see, you can take it from the government-wide, and you can see the governmental, and you have that reconciliation that goes between them. And then you can use these schedules on that non-major column to then break that down more. And then within each of those combining schedules, it's broken down even more. So we're at like level 5 now. After these combining schedules, though, are the other supplementary information. And a lot of these schedules are the state compliance schedules and things that the state of California requires us to put into audit reports. So there's like the schedule of instructional time. Normally there would be a schedule of ADA or average daily attendance, but because it was a hold harmless, that schedule is actually not required this year. And then it's followed by the schedule of financial trends and analysis. This is actually my favorite schedule in the audit reports to look at, because it's kind of a bird's eye view snapshot of the last couple of years and the budget going forward to kind of see where the district has been, where it's going, where it thinks it will go. And you can see that for the last 3 years, the net change in fund balance has been positive. So that's good. That means that the more revenues were brought in than expenses went out. And there are some little snippets throughout here about the changes, the percentages that have happened, kind of, general explanations as to why, if you want to read up on those. One of the things that I do like, though, and once again, this year was a hold harmless, but it also shows the ADA at P2. And so that kind of helps you to see, oh, okay, this went down this year, and it looks like ADA went down, and it correlates. Or, wow, ADA went up 100, and that's why we got more revenue. And sometimes if ADA stays similar, but expenses went up, then that, that kind of puts a better picture on the financials than trying to slog through page after page after page after page of like super detailed cost by function. So that's just my 2 cents as to why I like this schedule so much. After the supplementary schedules, well, they end with the schedule like some of these charter school schedules, schedule of first 5 program expenditures. This right here is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. So all of these are required to be in the audit report. After these are 3 letters. There is a federal letter that is an opinion letter over the compliance of the major federal programs that were audited. And we were able to do an unmodified audit opinion on the federal letter, which is good. There's an internal control letter over government auditing standards. One of the things this letter does is it kind of defines for the reader what the significant deficiency is, what a material weakness is, so that if they see that in the audit report, they understand a little bit more as to what that is. And then it's also kind of just saying what the purpose of the internal control report is, because it's not an opinion one. And then finally, there's the state compliance letter, which is another opinion letter. It shows which programs were applicable to the school district that was being audited. And then it gives an opinion on the state compliance. And once again, we were able to say unmodified audit opinion. And all of those are summarized on the schedule of auditors results. So you can see there's 3 sections: financial statement, federal awards, state awards. And for financial, we were able to do unmodified. If material weaknesses were identified, significant deficiencies were identified, or non-compliance, we were able to mark no. Same thing for federal awards. We were able to mark no for material weakness, significant deficiency, and if there's any audit findings that we had to disclose. It lists the major programs that were audited during the federal audit portion of the audit, and then it finishes with the state awards, and it does say unmodified, which you can see means on the page that all boards love to see, the schedule of findings and question costs. This year, we are able to say none, no findings. And kind of on top of that note, the schedule of prior year findings has a little summary of the findings that were in the audit before. One of them being the vacation carryover, one of them being about the SARC. We did audit those areas, and we found both of those to be implemented with what we recommended last year. So that was a good thing. You know, no one wants to see a repeat finding. Sometimes it happens, but that didn't happen this year. And with that, I open it up to any questions you all have.
I appreciate the detail. I got to admit, a lot of it kind of went over my head, but some of the most important things I think of was there. But I do have a question just a little bit back. You were showing the 3 categories. There was the federal, but the last item I saw is however material deficiencies may be there that have not yet been identified.
That language is in the letters. That is correct, because the biggest thing is the audit itself is not a 100% audit. We use audit sampling and risk assessments to kind of attack the areas that are deemed the riskiest most aggressively, and then the areas that have very low risk, we don't have to do as much testing. And so in any audit that you will see, there is always going to be those caveats that we did not find this, but it could still exist.
I understand. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And again, I always jump right down to those findings, and I think the first time I ever saw it, no findings whatsoever. That was good news.
I don't know many board members who don't flip to the back pages first in the audit report when they get it.
Any other questions from the board?
Nope.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it, Mr. Sproul. And I'm just pleased that it shows the great management all the way across the board that we have in this district to keep us so financially on top of things. Thank you so much.
And I will say one thing, you know, distance learning, that legislation passed in July of 21. And then they said on August 26th, okay, the CDE said this, like, okay, here's how you can do distance learning. You also have to have this implemented on September 1st. And so for the district to not have a distance learning finding mean they worked their butt off for that. And so when we do these presentations, we do like to mention that, because it does mean they worked very hard.
That's good to know, because I know our district did work hard at that, and for that to come out in the audit really is complimentary. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Really do appreciate that. All right, everybody, that'll bring us to a facilities update. The facilities update.
No, thank you.
Good evening, folks. Well, it's already February, and we've been hard at work in our overall facilities program. At Robla Elementary, we continue to to clean up the site. We were able to get a break in the weather and pave the blacktop. We have not yet done striping, which is the next phase, which would be the all the courts and other elements. Right now, it's just plain blacktop. We are waiting for the asphalt to cure. However, students have been able to utilize the space for recess and play. We continue to work on the punch list items, addressing any concerns that are presented by the site or by the district. Due to the recent county orders, we had moved the ribbon cutting ceremony to March 2nd. Now, there are two major items to be completed at Robla Elementary that are still ongoing. One, as I mentioned, is the striping for the blacktop. The other one is the installation of a crosswalk at the northern part of the driveway on Rose Avenue. That is a requirement by CDE. It is a project that we've been working with the city for some time now, and we've been trying to resolve an issue regarding a flashing signal for that crosswalk. And so we continue to work with the city on implementing that, but that is something that we'll continue to work towards. And later this evening, we do have an item which includes an allowance for that particular project. And we can talk about that in further detail, but those are the two remaining items. I am happy to report that absent any additional work beyond the scope that we've allocated for that crosswalk, the change order that the board will be considering later tonight should represent the closeout in terms of expenses for that project. So we will talk about that in greater detail, but in terms of getting to the finish line with the Robla Elementary School project, we are looking to complete that in the next 30 to 45 days for complete turnover to the district and its staff. At Bell Avenue, we're in modernization mode. We have moved our construction activities over to the existing classroom buildings and commenced the demolition necessary to install the kindergarten classroom buildings. So we are continuing to work on that as well. One other item you'll see this evening is a change order primarily related to the replacement of the covered walkways. In our initial budget, we had contemplated repair of those canopies. We have discovered extensive dry rot in those canopies, and the district and CFW have come to the conclusion that those need to be replaced. And a couple of considerations regarding replacement of canopies. It's always been a little tricky. Some of you on the board may recall when we had to do Taylor. One of the things we had to consider is that the way that DSA evaluates seismic safety is that if you have two building elements within proximity of one another, if there's not a certain minimum threshold between those two buildings, they're treated as one seismic element. And so because the canopies were built in a different era, with a different code, we've had to go back and while pursuing replacement, we also have to look at the re-engineering of where we put posts, what's the distance between the existing buildings and that new canopy and so forth. So where we had hoped to get by with repairing what we had, especially since there's a number of utility systems that sit on top of those canopies. So for those of you who have been to the new two-story classroom building and been on the second floor, if you look down upon the existing classroom buildings, you'll see that there's conduit, not only for electrical, but for data, as well as HVAC. And so that's something else we have to take into consideration to do that as well. That's something we continue to look at. That's something that we're evaluating. And obviously that's something that's come with the cost to discuss further. I apologize. Yeah, he's quiet for an hour while he goes to the audit, but then once I start talking. And so we're continuing with that demolition work and with a focus getting back into those classrooms in the summer, including that for the occupation in the fall. We are encountering some supply chain issues, and obviously we're still dealing with the effects of COVID on the workforce, as well as being able to schedule some work with the utilities, one of which we're trying to resolve is with AT&T, making sure we have service to the buildings. And it's something we continue to address as best we can. The good news is we know we have a problem now in February. And we have a couple months ago and chased that, but that's something that we continue to look at as well. At Glenwood, I think everybody's happy to see that we've also completed paving over there as well. And so the bus loop has been, the bus drop-off has been paved, as well as the interior play surface adjacent to the kindergarten complex. We have moved also over there into the modernization of buildings A and B. That's classrooms 1 through 8 that we are working on modernization. We hope to have that modernization of those 2 buildings completed by spring break. And then we'd move on to the next 2 buildings in the complex, in the northern portion of the campus, and then concluding work on the campus during the summer with the I won't say demolition, I guess I would say the repurposing of the amphitheater, as well as improvements to the library media center and the current kindergarten classroom, which will serve as the art room going forward. As Mr. Castillo had stated previously, we are taking the governor's budget as a sign of good news as it pertains to the district's applications for state aid reimbursements for modernization and new construction projects. We have submitted a number of applications to the Office of Public School Construction seeking reimbursement for projects the district has undertaken. But for one reason or another, at the time of the application, the state did not have funds available for us to be reimbursed. As an example, one of the applications that we had just finished going over with the OPSC for their review is related to a modernization application tied to the reconstruction of Main Avenue, the first 7 classrooms. So for those of you who have been with us a while, that project was completed some time ago. The state is just getting around to looking at some of those applications. But we do take the cash infusion that's being proposed in the governor's budget that Mr. Castillo had alluded to as a positive sign. And with that infusion of $1.4 billion, we believe that not only will the projects that are currently waiting in line on the current allocation of bond projects to be funded, but the other projects beyond the current bond authority could also be examined, reviewed, and allocated funds. So in addition to the modernization application for the original project at Main Avenue, we also have a pending application for a new construction project at Main Avenue, which is the 2-story classroom building. We have the new construction and modernization applications for the improvements that were done at Taylor Street, which have been completed. And we have additional applications that we will be filing for Glenwood and Bell as well. And in addition to all of that, the district was eligible for a full-day kindergarten grant program that was administered in 2019 and 2020. We received approximately $800,000 from the state to apply towards 2 kindergarten classrooms at Robla Elementary. And that was absorbed into the overall budget. So we got some money back when we built those kindergarten classrooms at Robla. There is a new round of funding. Approximately $490 million will be made available to school districts over the next 2 years, with the first round first application window opening on April 1st and running through April 30th. We are working with staff in putting together that application and making sure that we have the ability to go forward with that. This program is a little different in that it's prioritizing preschool facilities as well as transitional kindergarten facilities. As Superintendent Reyes and Mr. Castillo had talked about previously, there is a strong emphasis on providing facilities for early childhood development and early childhood education. And so this is a way for them to hopefully start looking at offsetting some of the costs from a facility side that will be required as the implementation of TK comes to fruition. By no means will the $490 million that is available for the approximately 1,087 school districts accommodate everybody's needs. In fact, we anticipate that this program will be oversubscribed many times over, but it is an additional funding source that we are exploring so that if possible, we can get the award and build some additional TK and preschool facilities using the state's money. Looking forward, like I said, at Robla, just completing looking to complete those projects, and then having that ribbon cutting ceremony planned for March 2nd. Members of the board, I'm sure you've probably received an invitation. If not, you will receive one very shortly, and we will hopefully have a beautiful day for a ribbon cutting ceremony out there at Bell Avenue. Continue to work on the punch list items and work with debt modernization, and similarly over at Glenwood. With that, happy to take any questions the board may have or any specific questions regarding the projects at this time.
I'd just like to say it was such a relief and pleasure to see that pavement completed over at Glenwood and the removal of the fence. I drove by there today at pickup time, and what a difference over the past well over a year. It looks good.
We specially planned that so that it would look pristine as you drove by.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Emilio. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks for all the work you're doing.
We'll see you guys in a few items.
All right. New Hope Charter School, Mr. Pagani.
Evening, President Boyd, trustees, Superintendent Reyes, and staff. I am thrilled to say that I'd love to see Mr. Flores and Mr. Hinckley, but I will not be talking about school facilities. I'm going to be talking about students and teachers. So I'm going to share my screen, and here we go. Right. Right. So thank you as always for having me, and just look forward to giving you updates over the next 2-3 updates that I'll be providing. I'm really going to focus on who are we serving, or whom are we serving, our students in particular, and how are we serving them. So tonight, I really wanted to step back and just continue to focus, of course, on the collaboration and the relational trust that we're building. We've talked a lot about at the board level with our superintendent, with the district, with all the different adults that are key people in just helping us get our school established and up and running. But I really want to focus on the relationship building, the trust that we're building with our students, their teachers, and the work that we're doing with them. So I want to give you a bit of a profile of our students in terms of just who are we serving. And so as you all can probably surmise that our school, New Hope Charter School, very much reflects our community and the school district. And so we have a very diverse student body. We have about 20 languages also spoken in our school, just as the district does. We have about 50% of our students are English learners. About 20% of our students come to us with special education programs. They have specialized services that we provide them. And just overall, we have 137 students, and we've maintained that enrollment ever since we've opened our campus. This is actually week 6 of in-person. So I'm going to continue. And for us, I'm going to be bringing academic data to you all, like as I said, over the next couple of updates on our students' reading, writing, reasoning skills, all the different academic pieces. However, as an educator, I was taught in my first year of teaching that students don't care what you know until they know that you care. So we really took a very intentional step at the beginning of the school year in September. And then once again, we did that in December and January to really understand the needs of our students, their social emotional needs. These students have been in distance learning or independent study for about 2 years. And so there are a lot of things that we needed to learn about them, just how they are doing, and just really try to then work from there. So we really believe in data-based decision-making, as well as our counselor. We have data-based counseling. So I'm going to go into that. And for our board packet, you all have these slides that you can read, but I'm going to go through them. I'm going to jump through a few of them, but they ask them, kind of, surface level questions, but also they go very deep with how students are thinking, how they're feeling, and just their self-image and so forth. And this is all anonymously done. We do these surveys, and students typically don't do them at school. They do them at home on their Chromebooks. So we keep this information confidential. So these are more the results of our group. So typically we do this needs assessment 2 times per year. And as I said, we did the first one at the beginning of the year in September. And I'll show you kind of a before the September look, but also the more recent look. And then typically what we do is we come back, as I said, and really formulate a plan using our social emotional learning curricula. And so the first attempt, as it says here, at identifying the students, maybe, we really want to look at who might be at risk and who may need more supports. So we've gone through many shifts and changes in the last few months. And, as I mentioned, our facility and so forth, but just schedule changes and so forth, but also then just globally with the pandemic, there have been so many things that have impacted our students. So we've sent out another needs assessment to see what issues are currently affecting our school community, as it says here, but we've had about 50% of our students respond. So the information I'm sharing tonight really represents about 50% of our 137 students, and we're going to try to capture 100% of our students. But nevertheless, there's some valuable information to be gleaned here. So what you're looking at is September versus the most recent that we did in January. So there's things that we ask in this survey, things like I have difficulty controlling my anger, right? And so on the left, the portion of this circle that I really want you to focus on throughout this is really this red area. I don't know if you all can see my cursor, but that number, we want it to actually, that's where they're saying no. We actually want that number to increase, right? And more people saying no, now I have less difficulty, or I don't have difficulty controlling my anger. But this is valuable information for us. Things like, another question is, I usually get low grades. Well, we want to understand and go deeper with our students, like, why do you usually get low grades, or why do you believe you get low grades? And so it could be study skills and so forth. So this is, again, valuable information. There are things like I have trouble making friends, or I've been bullied or harassed. And it's hard sometimes to look at this kind of data because it's difficult to see that there are so many students who are struggling tremendously on this level. Even kids, we have a question in here in terms of like, I have poor body image or an eating disorder. So, but we need to know where students are, especially in this critical stage now as they're going into being teenagers, adolescents, and they have their bodies are changing. There's so much going on physically as well as psychologically and emotionally. So these are the types of things that we're learning. If you look here, this is one that says, I'm afraid to come to school. Now, this is, again, a product of the pandemic with COVID and so forth. And here in September, it's about 60%, said that, they weren't afraid to come to school, but now we have about 70% who said they feel pretty safe coming to school. And nobody is saying that, they're afraid, but the no's in this case, we want them to increase on this type of a survey. So there's things like test anxiety or kids who have trouble with study skills and so forth. So what we want to do, again, is use this data. And so in the Robla, data analysis protocol, they talk about what, and then so what. So what does this all mean? The good news is, as it says here, is that most of our student population are feeling safe and are not suffering from many emotional issues. However, there's still a percentage of students who do need more support. So that's what we go to when we talk about now what. So we've broken this down into the multi-tiered systems of support as Robla School District uses. And so the first tier is really just the vast majority of students. In fact, all of our students, whole school, we have an advisory program. Last time I gave you an update, I shared our schedule, and I'll reference that here in a moment. But everybody in our school, all of our students, with our teachers, led by our counselor, Ms. Sapon, they all have this opportunity on a daily basis to receive social emotional learning lessons, as well as lessons that our counselor may push into certain classrooms to guide. And this whole curriculum that we have is designed by our counselor, and again, for the whole school. And so I'm just going to reference this, and I'll go back to that slide. But as I mentioned last time, here's our daily, it's only 10 minutes, but that 10 minutes can be pretty powerful because we have questions that really generate conversations in these groups as their advisory teacher is meeting with them daily. And then on Thursdays over here, you see we have 1 hour, 10 minutes of advisory before they go into the enrichment of music and theater and so forth. But we can go deeper with students in terms of conversations around support, opportunities for additional small group tier 2 support as well during that time. That's the other piece, is just like we have a counselor. We're very fortunate. We have a counselor who is outstanding and is really helping us be able to address the 3 tiers. So our group focusing, the small group that we're going to be focusing on stress manage will be starting up in March. And then our counselor will also work with students one-to-one. And so we, of course, have parent input and permission to be able to provide the small group as well as the one-to-one counseling for students who need additional support. So this is, again, this whole group approach is really structured and built into our schedule. So it's not something that we just do by chance. It's something that we do very intentional on a daily basis, that we're addressing these needs of students. So, and then with this, I'll close up on this segment, but as we're doing this, we're really starting to see students respond and really be really starting to grow in terms of them being able to articulate their thoughts, their feelings, their needs, so that we can better address those both at school, but also with our families. So I'm going to jump to a couple of other items, then I would love to hear any questions that you all may have, or other information I can provide on how we're supporting students based on this data. I just want to give you a quick update on a couple other things. Our student recruitment campaign, just as we are settling into our new facility, it's time to start planning for next year, of course. And so we have worked with the superintendent, with our superintendent's cabinet, and with our own team to have our student recruitment plan in place. And we are ready to launch recruitment for the upcoming school year for the current 6th graders as they move forward into 7th grade. And so I'll give you more details and updates as we did last year on student recruitment and students who are enrolling with us. So because of our space needs, we have space for about 150 to 175 7th graders currently in Robla. But overall, Robla has 270 6th graders who are rising 7th graders. So that means that we won't be able to take everybody in as we would love to, but just because of the space limitations, we won't be able to do that for now until we are in our more permanent facility. But student recruitment is happening, and if you have anybody who is interested in enrolling at New Hope Charter School, please refer them to our website. That's the easiest way. And the very top of the menu is student enrollment. And there's an online application there that folks can fill out. And if they have any questions or any trouble filling that out, then they can give us a call, and the phone number and contact information is there on the recruitment page. Okay, so I will now please ask any questions or any conversation that we'd like to have at this point.
Yes, first of all, I would like to commend you on persevering through not only being a brand new school, but, you know, teaching or getting started with everything and really focusing on not just education, but mental and physical health of every student. I really want to commend you on that. Thank you for doing that. And also, I was thinking it would be lovely if we could get a couple comments from a few of your students, maybe written out, like what they love about the school, what their favorite program is. That may be a very good recruitment tool for the Robla 6th graders to get the students excited about going into junior high and looking forward to the school, as well as getting parents interested in knowing what's there and available.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know, that kind of piggybacks on what I was about to say. Now that we've gone into a couple of months of in-person learning, you pick up a sense of pride and the fact, this class of the pioneers is something within Robla. I would guess that it was there in the beginning. Did you see it, and does it continue?
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the things that we're working on with Mr. Reyes and our folks at the district is a video to capture this story, right? This whole effort. And that is the theme that we're really focusing on, to bring that message out of this group is the first, you know, they're the first cohort, they're the first group of students and families, and as well as our staff. You know, our staff are doing great work with our students. And so just capturing that message and in their own words, as Trustee Devine said, and letting them in their own words tell the story, how they connected with this mission and vision.
I have a really funny question. I just remembered I was a first year at a brand new school. What is your mascot? Have you guys voted yet?
That is a great question, Trustee Devine. We don't actually have a mascot yet. Mr. Reyes has asked me this question before. But here's what we did do. So, you know, in the advisory class, there's a lot of things that we do with that time. One of those, in addition to the social emotional learning, we do grade checks, but also we do things like have polls. And so one of them is the mascot poll. And I have to tell you, right now, the mascot that's trending toward winning, I won't comment, is dragons.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I like your reaction. And so that's where we're at right now. But that's what the kids are, that's what it's trending toward. So I'm just curious about, you know, like, how do we turn that into a mascot? So, and so.
Oh, there's tons of ways.
There's a lot of good, positive dragons in this fantasy world. Yeah.
Right. So,
Puff the magic dragon. Come on.
Exactly.
No, that is something that, yeah, we're asking our students and families actually, and to contribute to that.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. Are there any other questions from the board? Thank you so much, Mr. Pagani. It's always a pleasure to hear the progress you're making over there.
Yeah, thank you all.
That brings us to supplement to the annual update of the 2021-22 LCAP. Mr. Reyes.
Yes. You know, I will share that my high school mascot at Sacramento High School, we are the Dragons. So it's already happened. All right. I have the pleasure of sharing tonight with the board a presentation that, let me share my screen. This is a presentation I did on Monday evening. I think our trustee Cardona was there for the District Advisory Council meeting. This is a required update that must take place mid-year to report to our what we used to call our stakeholders, and now we're calling our educational partners, around how the implementation of the Robla LCAP is going for the 21-22 school year, providing information about how measurement of effectiveness is going, as well as how expenditures are going. I am going to move through this relatively quickly, simply because a lot of this information is prepared for the community, but it is rather basic information that the board already knows about. You just got a lot of information about the budget, and you do get interim reports from Mr. Castillo about expenditures during the year. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on actual, planning budget and actual budget. The board is well aware of how that process works, but here's some basic numbers that we presented to the community. The 5 questions that we must answer will be answered during this presentation. So there they are, but we'll move forward with them. Prompts 1 and 3 are about asking us to share with our educational partners how we engage, what processes or what types of meetings do we have that allow us to not only share with the community what is happening with the Robla LCAP, but also to gather information. So the Robla School Board is well aware that there are a number of ways that we've built into our system how we engage and collaborate with our community in order to discuss funding that we receive. That's in an ongoing way, as well as any special funding that we may have received over the past few years regarding COVID funds from both the federal government as well as the state government. So the board knows, of course, that you receive reports and updates at your regular meetings. You have meetings with me, and that's always an option for you, as well as the Labor Management Initiative, and Mr. Barnes represents the board in that group, and then emails that, of course, that come out from me with information to the board. In terms of our employee associations, again, I meet with our leaders monthly. And actually, I'm not going to go through the list. I will just say these are things that the board is well aware that happen in the Robla School District, that are ways that we stay in constant and regular communication with our employee groups, as well as formally with our employee associations. With parents, we do regular parent surveys. In fact, we're gearing up to do another new parent survey. And then we do have all of the parent groups that meet both at the district level and at the site levels, as well as our newsletters, social media, and the district website as communication methodologies. And then making sure that we are staying in communication with other members of the educational community. I have weekly superintendents meetings, as well as the Association of California School Administrators. We are, of course, always collaborating with the county office. We do have community represented on a resiliency team, and other local agencies that we work with and have worked really hard to establish those partnerships. So lots is happening in terms of engagement. What did we focus our additional concentration funding on this year? Again, the board is aware of these things because all of these expenditures were discussed with all of you and approved by all of you. You are well aware that even though we have been experiencing reduction in students, we haven't reduced our staff. So we decided the stability that we needed, we would keep in place. So even though we have had fewer students, we have let classes run small. And our required contractual numbers of 24:1 in the primary grades and 30:1 in the upper grades. We do have many classes that are far below those numbers. And then our educational partners have helped us to identify those areas where we have needed to beef up our work and spend some additional funding to focus in the areas of social emotional learning and support in MTSS. We now have, we added an additional coordinator of school climate position. You know, we've added a number of instructional assistant positions in the district to support both assessment and small group instruction. And, you know, we also hired additional PLSTs to support our teachers and to impact the quality of instruction that's happening in the classrooms throughout the district. In terms of ESSER 3 funds specifically, what did that funding get used for? You know that with all of the facilities work we've been doing in the district, we have now replaced, either we have replaced all of our HVAC systems because we built new buildings with new systems, or we did upgrade filters any place where we did not necessarily put in a new HVAC system. And that's true for both learning spaces and offices. And then we have been creating additional outdoor learning spaces, learning about the importance of having students be outside because of the pandemic, but we also know in the long run that will be good for our students as well. And so some of those funds have helped us to create and will help us to continue to create outdoor learning spaces. That's part of the project at Glenwood. We're currently working on the playground at Robla. We're talking about the playground at Maine, and we are creating an outdoor learning space adjacent to the district office for use by the Robla school. Again, in the area of expanded learning opportunities, the board is aware that we have now 2 devices for every student. They have a device at home as well as a device at school. We have supported our families with internet access. And then we, of course, ran a summer school in 2021 and plan to run a summer school again in 2022. And then in terms of closing the achievement gap, we've already mentioned the additional PLSTs, and we also did create an additional peer facilitator to support our teachers in setting high goals for their professional learning and for their professional growth. And that is helping to really impact, again, what's happening in the classroom. How do we make sure that all of our plans, our expanded learning plan, our COVID plan, our LCAP plan, our school plans, all really are work together? I think we do that by identifying these 3 priority areas. The board has helped set this direction, of course, that safe students and staff safety is of the utmost importance, as well as focusing on social emotional support for students and staff. And then, of course, closing the learning gap that has been caused from the loss of learning that happened as part of the pandemic. So moving forward, the state has asked us to give an update as to where we are in terms of measuring the work that we're doing. So in terms of our metrics, do we have an outcome that we already know? Do we have an outcome that is in progress? Or do we have outcomes that we are not quite sure about? And we actually have a number of measures that fall into all 3 of these buckets, as you will, going forward. We have things that have not started. We have things that we need to continue to work on, and we do have some things that have been completed. So we'll take those under each goal area. And for goal number 1, and I'll remind you that goal number 1 is our goal focused on student success. So you can see the areas that we've set. Williams review in terms of teacher assignments and teacher materials and availability of them. LPAC in terms of our achievement with students who are English learners, and math. You can see the goals that we set, where we are currently in gathering that information, and where we still have some information to gain. And I'll let you just look at that for a minute. Continuing in goal number 1, now looking at academic standards for efficacy tool for self-reflection, ELA achievement, as well as ELA end of benchmark assessment. So the ELA for K1, the phonics survey, as well as the benchmark assessment that we use in the other grades. And again, you see kind of what our baseline was in 2021, the goal we've set for the end of this LCAP cycle, and where we seem to be in moving towards that goal. But everything here, of course, is in progress. Goal number 2, which is our goal around school climate, making sure our schools feel both physically safe and emotionally safe. We're looking at things like attendance, suspension rates, the proportion of suspension rates in regards to student groups, our expulsion rate, and chronic absenteeism. Attendance is something that we need to focus on. It has dropped, and we think, of course, that has everything to do with COVID. So we are watching that, and we will continue to watch that. Suspension doesn't seem to be an issue right now in Robla. That's something that we were working on very much before the pandemic hit, and it continues to be really kind of a non-issue at this point. So we'll continue to monitor that. When all of our students are back, we will be able to look at that. But of course, we know that our schools with PBIS are really working to establish themselves and maintain themselves as calm places for students to excel. We don't expel students in Robla. We haven't done that in many, many years. And I anticipate that will continue to be the case. And absenteeism, of course, is going up, where you can see where we are now, which is not a great place to be, but we do, again, know that this is related to the pandemic, and we will anticipate that once that gets under control, we can make those numbers, get them closer to what they used to be, with a 95% attendance rate. Goal 3 is parent involvement. And the things that we're looking at here are related to parents coming to the activities what kind of activities do we offer, and our parents coming to them. And you can kind of see where we are there. But that's something that we have always done, had a lot of focus on, and continue to be successful with. Even during the pandemic, we've found our way with these ideas. And then goal 4, remember, is our new goal for this year, this idea that we have a goal now focused on equity and inclusion and respect, and for who our students are. And what we've been looking at with this, again, is suspension rates for our student groups, chronic absenteeism for different student groups. We've also been looking at the resilience work that we've been doing, and the board, of course, knows all of the details of the measurements that we've had in place related to that work. So in closing, I would just say we clearly have some challenges going forward this year and in the future. The continuing impacts of the COVID pandemic on attendance. We are hoping that will get better as that gets under control. We have had some issues hiring staff, even though we've had open positions, getting people to apply. We've had some really good success recently, but that's definitely something we have to keep trying to strategize around. Contact tracing and quarantines and all of that has been taking up a great amount of time and resources in the district. And we do hope that that's going to get better. And then, of course, the learning loss that we've already been talking about, as well as the declining enrollment that we've already been talking about, those remain to be challenges for Robla. What else do we need to be thinking about for the future? We need more data. And obviously, we had a great pause with so many of the assessments that we do. So we need to start gearing up to generate the data that we need. And Mr. Penman has been working very hard this year on shoring up our assessment practices in the district. And we know then the state is also going to be pushing forth with their assessment methodologies. We need to continue to design and implement programs and services that accelerate learning so that the loss that happened for students can be made up. And then we need to continue to do the work that we're doing with our facilities to make sure that they are upgraded for all students. And we, of course, we're very proud that we're getting very close to having consistently strong classrooms with 21st century outfitted for the 21st century at all of our schools across the board for all of our students. And in closing, I just want to say, I try to take every opportunity I can to express my gratitude to the board for their consistency in supporting our community, and to our employees for hanging in there during this very difficult time and allowing all of these things to happen even though everybody is experiencing a great deal of anxiety and stress. It's just something that is, I really marvel at as the superintendent of the district. And I'm happy to answer any questions. You're on mute, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you. Let me go back. Is there any questions from the board?
Nope, I'm good.
I just thank you for the report, but the one thing that really jumps out is that attendance, which is just out of control because of the pandemic. But I have to say that personally, I feel a little optimistic the way that the things are going right now, the relief of the masking issues and all. And I know we went through this last year in the summertime where they said we'd go out with masks and all of a sudden whatever it is, came about. But this time, hopefully we may be on a downhill. I don't think it's going to be gone for a long time, but more like a flu, more like just a common thing to treat like a flu, and we can address these issues. But anyways, thank you for the report, Mr. Reyes. Next, we have the first reading of revised policies, regulations, and or exhibits. And want to comment, Mr. Reyes?
Sure. Again, this is our standard process for bringing forth policies that need updating so that we are in line with current laws and regulations. And these particular updates are all required legally. And so we are presenting them as we do to the board to begin reading them. Of course, over the next month, if you have any questions or need any clarification, you can reach out to me, and then we will bring them back to the board for approval so that our policies are up to date at the next board meeting.
Thank you. And can I have a motion for the consent agenda? The approval of minutes, warrant reports, personnel reports, and we also have approval of a travel Washington, D.C. for Cindy Lyon.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, carries 5-0. That brings us to the action items. We have an MOU with Food Literacy Center to provide after-school food literacy education at Robla School.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Moved in second.
Second.
Any discussion, Mr. Reyes, you want to comment?
Yes, if I could just take a minute to say this is an activity that we have coordinated with Sacramento Start, who provides, of course, as the board is well aware, our after-school program. And I wanted to acknowledge Erica Lee, our student wellness coordinator, for making arrangements for these activities to happen with our students. We're kind of mingling our funding. The city will be paying for part of the schools and we'll be paying for the other schools. And it will bring some really wonderful food literacy training around nutrition and healthy eating and even cooking skills to our students in a cycle that will visit all 5 schools over the rest of the course of the remaining school year.
I'm happy to see Start involved with the food literacy, as our district has been for many years now. And I just like to comment. I haven't seen them recently. I haven't been able to go in there, but the fact, these people working for Start are really interested in providing a good after-school program for the kids, and I really can't say enough for what they do. And food literacy, I think, is a big jump in all of that. So thank you. So with that, any other comments? All in favor then? Let's bring it to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstain, carries 5-0. We have a contract with ATX Services, non-public agency, to provide short-term special education staffing.
So moved.
Second.
Moved. Mr. Reyes?
Yes, the board is well aware of this process. We have specific needs sometimes with students in their IEPs to provide a specific type of service. And sometimes we need the support of outside agencies to provide a service that we cannot provide currently within the district. And these contracts are necessary to make sure we are meeting the needs of a particular student.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
What is the turnaround time from the company in order to get a representative to help?
You know, Mrs. Graham is in the room and she can answer any questions that you may have specifically, but I will say, Ms. Devine, that Ms. Graham works very hard to coordinate all of this before we bring the contract to the board. So they discuss the needs of the student, the very specific details of the service, the start date. And so once we get approval from the board, we're always off and running.
Oh, okay, perfect. So it's not like something where it takes a month just to find somebody to step in.
No, she
Okay.
has done all the groundwork ahead of time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other comments or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, carries 5-0. Item C, contract with PCOE to provide PBIS training. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Reyes.
Well, the board's well aware that we've been working on implementing PBIS, positive behavior intervention and support, for many years in Robla, but it is necessary at this time to do some more basic training, kind of we're calling it a reboot at 2 of our schools. And that requires us then to create a contract with Placer County Office of Education, who in our region are the certified PBIS trainers. They did the training with all of our schools initially 5 years ago. And so we have been in conversations with the teams and the principals of those schools and are ready to gear up to provide this training and get these schools that, I don't want to say they're off track. That's not really what it's about. Really what it's about is that when these schools were initially trained, a lot of those staff members are now gone. And so we need to kind of reboot the training because they have a whole new staff on board to gain this information and implement this program successfully at their school.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions? No, I'd just like to comment. I really am pleased with the seriousness that this district takes in PBIS, and with all that our students have had to go through and coming back in, I'm sure it's probably prepared them a little bit better for this environment that we have right now. So thank you. Call the question to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstains, carries 5-0. Item D, contract with Sounding Board Marketing and Communications for preschool marketing campaign.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Reyes.
Yes, again, Sounding Board, as the board is already well aware, is already under contract with the Robla School District to be working on all of the things that we've been talking about all year in the K-6 world. What we really hadn't devised any plan for was the preschool world. And the board knows that our preschool but enrollment has been down. That's been another casualty of COVID. And we do need to really work very hard as we gear up for the upcoming year to really recruit children to come back to preschool. So Ms. Earhart and sat down with Ms. McGowan, and they created this plan that you see in your board packet to really kind of have a robust system over the school year to really work to get word out about the Robla preschool and to create videos and create a lot of different tools that we can use to get as many of those 3 and 4-year-olds into our preschool for the upcoming year. Not only for the good of the district, but of course, mainly for the good of the children who we know benefit greatly from participating in that program.
Any other comments, questions? Yeah, and it's, you know, we offer such a early childhood services. I wish all the luck and success in marketing this, because we have it there, and we just need to make sure that the community knows that it's available.
That's exactly the point, Mr. Boyd.
Yeah. So I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, carries 5-0. Item E, the 2022 ballot for CSBA Delegate Assembly. Mr. DeLuce, I'm going to let you address this item.
Yeah, so right now it's basically we're electing new delegates to the assembly, or to the delegate assembly. There are actually 2 spots available, but only one person has been nominated. The gentleman who's been nominated, I've known very well even prior to his time being on the board, and he'd be a fantastic candidate worth nominating.
And the gentleman's name? That's all right. I don't want.
I have it right here in front. I'm sorry, Christopher Clark.
Thank you. And you know, I can't thank you enough for all you've done too, being on the delegate assembly, Mr. DeLuce, and I really respect your opinion on this. With that, can I have a motion to support Mr. Clark for delegate assembly?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Sorry, second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, carries 5-0. Item F, approve approval of prime contract change order number 12 to the construction services agreement with Flint Builders for adjustment of costs for the Bell Avenue Elementary School new classroom and administration building. And Mr. Flores, I imagine that you're going to address this one.
Certainly. As I mentioned previously, and I'm also joined by Ron Hickey as well for any specific questions about the sub items. But as mentioned before, we're bringing this change order number 12 to the board. It's in the contract amount of $368,839. About 2/3 of it pertains to the replacement of the canopies at the Bell Avenue on the existing buildings. The balance of that is, as you can see, a number of different items there. Has to do with minor changes that have been made along the way, or additional scope that's been added as we've gone through this. For example, sewer line repairs, things that we encounter during the course of construction, additional drainage to the site. We did have to make some modifications to the parking lot drainage as we all encountered that huge storm a few months ago. The good news is that I think we were able to test the system under the maximum amount of rainfall per hour as possible, but we made some adjustments to hopefully mitigate future water intrusion in the area as well. But at this time, we're asking for the board's approval of this item, and we're happy to answer any specific questions the board may have regarding some of the costs or our overall process reviewing this.
Personally, I just like to say that I'm pleased to see the work in this canopy. Not only was it bad disrepair, it was a safety hazard. We had some collapses in there, and it's it reminds me of back to Main Avenue. I think we all held our breath as we were waiting to build that school with what was going over there. So that'll be good to see. I don't think I asked for a motion on this.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any other questions or discussion?
How long will this project extend completion time for the school?
Certainly. So as I mentioned in our previous report, we're really trying to get the school fully occupied for the 2022-23 school year. So our plan is to be done by the beginning of the school year. We were made aware of a couple complications this afternoon at our construction meeting. We were trying to mitigate those. Like I mentioned before, some has to do with the services of some of the utilities going to the site. So we're working on the contract to do that. But our goal is to have students in the classroom for the beginning of the school year. And we were in discussions with Superintendent Reyes regarding that. And as we're in constant communication about that, we're trying to address as well. And so we hope to have that done pending, we don't find some other type of unforeseen condition. As President Boyd had mentioned, and I forgot to mention this as well, there was water intrusion that occurred during that storm on the existing classrooms. So we did have some large leaks in the former administrative offices. We had a number of ceiling panels collapse under the weight of water intrusion. And so we've had to, while repairs were made at the time, those are things that we're also looking for in terms of permanent solutions to some of those areas as well.
Okay, but the canopies being rebuilt isn't going to extend into the next school year.
No, they're already setting up to do that. As I mentioned previously, our goal was to do repairs initially, but the architect has already submitted a CCD, a change of design directive, CTD, and so we've already going through the process with the Division of State Architect to make sure that those canopies are approved and we can begin construction.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I'll just say I can imagine Miss Hall is going to be pleased with this too. So it'll be good to see. All right, call the question into vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstain, carries 5-0. Next, we have item G. Item G, approval of prime contract change order number 6 to the construction services agreement with Clark Sullivan Construction for adjustment of costs for the Robla Elementary School, new classroom building and school modernization. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Flores?
I'm actually give this to Mr. Hickey, as it's slightly nicer news in terms of us finishing a project.
Thank you. The majority of this PCCO is what you typically see at the end of any construction. The contractor looks at any extension, as Emilio had mentioned in the earlier presentation, the rain, the weather that we had, the weather delay that caused contractors to be on site longer. The trailer was on site longer. The utilities use. There was a calculation of the superintendent, other staff. And so the first part of this PCCO is PCO 105. And it's just a contractor that is balancing out all the books so he can close the books. And that is the bulk of the number of PCOs. The large item on here is the $117,000 charge. And that was additional site work that the district maintenance director saw fit to make a correction to the site that had not been done previously. So the scope of the work as it related to the site work in the playground, the district director of maintenance saw areas that could be corrected. And after speaking with him and chief business officer, it was agreed upon this work really needed to be done. And so then there was $51,000 a charge that went to expanding some of the modernization within the MPR. Once we got in there, there was additional work that was identified that could increase the life cycle of this particular facility. And those two items are the bulk of this particular PCCO. But what you see in the first 6 or 7 line items is just what you'll see this again at Glenwood. You'll see it again at Bell Avenue. It's the contractor really closing out the books. And this will be the last PCCO you'll see for this particular contract as it closes out. I will mention the very last item is for the crosswalk. The crosswalk is not complete yet because we're waiting on design approval from the city of Sacramento. And once that design is approved, Clark Sullivan will come in and finish that particular crosswalk. Other than that, this project is pretty much closed out.
And if I may add real quick as well, as mentioned in my report previously, we're trying to find the most economical way to address the crosswalk at Rose Avenue. Obviously, our priority is the safety of children crossing the street. But with that said, we are trying to minimize the overall cost to the district. It has been we have tried to find ways in which to provide that crosswalk, in a timely manner up to this point. However, the city has insisted upon having a dedicated power source to that crosswalk for those flashing signals. And the nearest electrical connection that the city owns that has capacity is across Rio Linda on the other side of the busy street. Mr. Hickey has been engaged with the city trying to allow the district to either take ownership of the flashing signals so that we can connect it to our power source, which is right there on site, or pick up the maintenance of the batteries that a solar powered crosswalk would require. Because that'd be far less costly than having to trench across Rio Linda, replace asphalt, hire people to control traffic and the like. So that is an item, folks, that we put a contingency in there. But if the city of Sacramento deems it necessary for us to go and create a new power source, we will be coming back to the board, A, to inform you, and then B, for approval, anything beyond that $25,000 allocation. But that is the large outstanding item. In terms of the additional work that is being conducted for the striping of the playground, the play surface, and the installation of the basketball hoops and things of that nature, that is in an item that the board previously adopted, which is being funded through the ESSER funds. So that line item, the cost that we had over there, we have those line items budgeted into there for a replacement of what was there previously. If the scope over there also expands for any reason, we'll come back to you. But at this time, that is covered under that separate agreement, which was approved by the board, I believe, about two or three months ago.
Well, I certainly hope the city has the compassion for this district trying to service the safety of the students at the most minimal cost, but without jeopardizing safety. So hopefully there's some real reasoning that comes into that decision. Any other comments or questions? With that, I call the question to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, one last item, any board member requests for future agenda items or reports?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, Ms. Cardona.
Let's see. Hey, Shari, Mr. Robertson's looking for somebody for this Saturday for three board members to help with the Black History, right?
That's next Saturday. Yes.
Next Saturday.
Yes.
Okay.
For the voting, judging.
Okay. All right. Write me down then.
Thank you, Nuvia.
Okay. Thanks.
Can you
Okay.
email me about that?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Mr. Barnes,
None.
Mr. Deleuze.
Nothing.
I regretfully say that I'm not going to be able to attend that Saturday. I have my brother out here from Pennsylvania. As I said, we're going to be going to Yosemite, but that's his last day here, and I do want to spend that day with him. And I do regret that I can't spend that. I really enjoy being part of that. So with that, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank everybody for all the time and effort that you put into this, and we'll see you.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Sorry, Trustee Boyd. But the item for my travel?
Mrs. Lyon, I just sent you a message on that. It was in the consent agenda and it was approved.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Enjoy the trip.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
With that, I declare the meeting closed.
See you
Bye,
later.
everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good night.
You too, Nubia. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right.